Hi, my name's Paul Grogan, and in this gaming rules video I'm going to be teaching you how to play Colosseum, published by Tasty Minstrel Games. In Colosseum, you take on the role of an impresario in ancient Rome, and must fill your amphitheatre with gladiators, lions, comedians and decorations and so on in order to put on impressive shows. These shows will bring you much needed spectators, earning you money so that you can buy more things and put on even bigger shows. The player who put on the single show that attracted the most spectators by the end of the game wins. Place the game board in the middle of the table. Each player chooses a colour and takes the two rounded arena pieces in that colour. The small numbers here show where to place the arena pieces according to the number of players in the game. I'm setting up a 3-player game, so the arenas are placed like this. Place the Emperor on his starting space, the consuls on their starting spaces, and the senators on their starting spaces. The spaces are colour-coded according to the piece. Place the arena extensions, Emperor's loges, season tickets and podiums in a supply just to one side. Each player places their scoring marker on the starting space of the scoring track. And give each player coins worth a total value of 30. And then place the rest of the coins in a supply next to the board. From the asset event tokens, sort out the 40 with the light brown backs and place them in the bag. Shake the bag to mix the tokens up, and then draw 3 of them for each of the 5 markets at the centre of the game board. Then, from the remaining tokens, each player takes a number of them at random and places them face up in front of them. 8 each in a 3-player game, 6 each with 4 players, and 5 each with 5 players. If there's a leftover token, which there will be in a 3- and 4-player game, place it off to one side for now. This will be used the first time we need a new token. Fill the bag with the grey-backed asset tokens and give them a mix. Sort out the starting event scrolls into ones with a value of 7 or 9. Shuffle them and give one to each player, returning any leftovers to the box. Do the same with the event scrolls valued 11 and 12. So now you have 2 starting event scrolls. These are the performances that you'll want to be putting on, showing the name of the event, what tokens you'll need, and how many spectators the show will attract. The remaining event scrolls are placed to one side, there's no need to shuffle them. Place the star performers, Emperor's medals and the dice off to one side. Each player gets a reference card, which contains a summary of the flow of the game on one side and a summary of all the event programmes on the other side. Give the first player token to the player whose arena is the nearest one clockwise to the Emperor. And finally, place the game round counter on the one space of the round tracker. Colosseum is played over a series of 5 rounds. Each round consists of 5 phases, which are done in order. In each phase, the starting player will take the first action, and then all of the players follow in clockwise order. In phase 1, each player may invest in either a new event programme, expand their arena, purchase a season ticket, or construct an Emperor's Loge. I'll explain each of these things later on. Phase 2 is where you acquire new event asset tokens, needed to put on your shows. This is done using an auction mechanic, with players bidding for the tokens on display in the centre of the board. In Phase 3, players can trade with each other, swapping asset tokens and money. Phase 4 is where you produce an event by displaying your event asset tokens and then calculating the number of spectators you get. In Phase 5, players conduct the closing ceremonies, where one player will receive a podium, some end-of-round things happen, and then you prepare for the next round. The game ends after Phase 4 of the 5th round, after all players have had the chance to produce their final event. In this phase, each player may make one investment. Although these are optional, they're very important, so you do want to make at least one investment each round if possible. Your first option is to buy a new event programme from the ones available. Each new programme is summarised on the back of the player aid, so that you can look at this to work out which one you want to buy without having to look through the stack of tiles. Each programme shows the cost to buy it, the assets required, and the number of spectators it will attract. Also note the size of the arena needed to produce the event. All the ones in this stack require an arena of size 3, and all the ones in this stack require a size 4 arena. Now, you can buy an event programme even if your arena is not the required size to put on the show, but you will need to increase the size of your arena before you produce that event later in the game. Notice that event programs do not need to be complete. If you're missing one or more tokens, you can still put the show on, but you will attract fewer spectators. For example, if you're putting on the event Circus Maximus, you ideally want 3 gladiators, 3 horses, 3 chariots and some decoration. This would give you 32 spectators. However, if you're missing one of these tokens, you will get 28 spectators. If you're missing 2 tokens, you'll get 24, and so on. Each event program is unique, so once you've bought one, nobody else can. You probably want to keep an eye on the other players and see what tokens they're collecting. That will give you some idea of what event programs they're going to buy, and make sure you get it before they do. Your second option is to expand your arena. This costs 10 money, and you take an arena expansion piece and expand your arena in either direction. If you expand onto a space with a noble, keep that noble on the space. He's now in your arena. The maximum size of an arena is 4 spaces. Option 3 is purchasing a season ticket. This also costs 10 money, and you take one of these markers and place it in your arena. Each season ticket you have attracts 5 additional spectators each time you produce an event, and you can have more than one season ticket. Your final option is to construct an Emperor's Loge. This only costs 5 money, and it increases the chance of nobles visiting your arena. I'll explain this more when we come to Phase 4. You can only have one Emperor's Loge. There is a way that you can make more than one investment during this phase. If you have one of these special event tokens, you may discard it to take an additional investment. And also, if you have 2 Emperor's Medals, you can discard them to also make an additional investment. If you do make additional investments, you can invest in the same thing more than once. In this phase, players have the opportunity to acquire more asset event tokens from the markets in the centre of the game board. The starting player becomes the first active player, and they point to one of the 5 markets and make an initial bid of money, which indicates how much they want to pay to pick up the 3 tokens that are in that market. The bid must be at least 8. And then all of the players in clockwise order either make a higher bid or pass. If you pass, you're out of the bidding for this particular set of tokens. Bidding continues round and round until there's only one player remaining. That player pays the winning bid to the bank and takes all 3 event asset tokens, placing them with the others that they already have. At this point, one of 2 things can happen. If the player who won the bid was the active player, the one who actually started the bid, then the markets are refilled with new tiles from the bag. Remember, if you had a token left over after setup, use this one first and then draw any others from the bag. And then the next player in clockwise order is the new active player. They select a market to bid for, make an initial bid, and so on. However, if the player who won the auction was not the active player, then the active player selects a new market to bid for without refilling first, but this time, anyone who has won an auction with the current active player may not bid for any others. For example, I'm playing a 3-player game with my good friends Red and Green. I'm the active player, so I select one of the markets and make a bid. Bidding goes round and round, and let's say that the green player wins that particular bid. So, because the active player, which is me, did not win the bid that I started, that means the markets don't refill and I now select one of the other markets to bid for. However, in this one, the green player cannot bid because he already won one. So let's say on my second market, I win that bid. Now the active player has won the bid, which means it's now the red player who becomes the new active player and all players are back in. Also note that bidding is optional, so even when it's your turn to start a bid for a market, you could actually pass, but you are giving up your opportunity to select one of the markets to bid for. Before I go any further, I just wanted to mention the star performers. At any time in the game, including just after setup, if you have 3 or more matching event asset tokens of the corresponding type, and have more of them than any other player, you get the appropriate star performer. For example, if I have 3 gladiators, and every other player has 2 or fewer, I get this star performer. But then if somebody else gets more than me, I have to give it to them. Each star performer that you have when you produce an event will give you 4 additional spectators. I'll explain more about producing an event when I talk about Phase 4. It's often the case that other players have the event asset tokens that you want, and vice versa. So in this phase, each player gets the opportunity to trade money and/or tokens with that of the other players. Now, trading is discussed, so for example, if you had a particular token that I wanted, I could offer you, say, 3 money for that token. But then you could look at the tokens that I have and say, ah, well, you've got a gladiator, so I'll tell you what, I'll swap your gladiator for this piece of scenery, and so on. Trading is done in order, so the starting player does all of their trades, and then the next player clockwise does all of their trades. You can only trade for things that you actually currently have. You can't make any promises for the future. And trades do not have to be equal, so swapping one token for two, for example, is a perfectly legal trade. Once all players have concluded their trading, this phase ends. This is the phase that you've been preparing for. Time to put on the show and get those spectators giving you money. Beginning with the starting player and going clockwise, each player takes a turn consisting of 4 steps. In step 1, you attempt to move the various nobles on the board into your arena in order to bring in more spectators. You do this by rolling the die. If you have constructed an Emperor's Loge, you roll both dice. You must then use the results of the die that you rolled to move one of the nobles clockwise around the board the exact number of spaces that you rolled. If you roll the side showing 1 to 3, you can move the noble 1, 2 or 3 spaces. If you rolled both dice, you can actually move one noble with the sum of the results of both dice, or move 2 different nobles, one with each die. If the movement of a noble ends on any of the resting spaces, you gain 1 Emperor's Medal. I'll explain what the medals do later on. If you combine both dice to move just one noble, you only take a medal if the final space the noble ends on is a resting space. And if you move 2 different nobles, and they both end on resting spaces, you still only get 1 medal. It's possible to have multiple nobles on the same space. In step 2, you choose which one of your event programs you're going to produce this round. Place the event program in front of you and announce the name of it. Then check to see if your arena is large enough. If not, you must choose a different program. Next, display all of the event asset tokens that you wish to use next to the program. You can only use the ones depicted on the program itself, but you don't need to use all of them, as mentioned earlier. Also, place any star performers next to the tokens. You can only use a star performer if you're using a matching token. So in this example, if I had the lion star performer, I could not use it because there's no lions in this event. Step 3 is where you count up how many spectators that attended your event. First, look at the program tile and work out how many spectators attended based on the event asset tokens that you used. In this case, I assigned all the tokens needed, so I get 7 spectators. Then add an additional 4 spectators for each star performer in the show. Add 5 spectators for each season ticket in your arena, and add 3 spectators for each podium you have. I'll explain how you get the podiums later on. For each noble in your arena, add either 3 spectators for a senator, 5 for a consul, and 7 for the emperor himself. And also add 5 spectators for each previous event which you have produced earlier in the game. And finally, you can discard Emperor's Medals to get you 3 additional spectators for each one you discard. Then, in step 4, you receive an amount of money from the bank equal to the total number of spectators that attended your event, and then place your scoring marker on that position of the scoring track. In future rounds, if your event attracts more spectators than any of your previous events, then move your scoring marker to the new position. Otherwise, you just leave it where it is. In other words, your score does not add up each round with each new event. It's simply a representation of the best event that you have put on so far. Then, flip the event program face down. In future rounds, each face down previously produced event will give you 5 extra spectators. However, you can also repeat the same event as the one you've previously completed. Simply flip the tile back face up when deciding which event to produce. But note that by doing this, loses you the 5 extra spectators that you would have got if you'd produced a different event. At the end of each round of the game, except the last, there are a number of steps to perform before starting the next round. First, each player must remove from the game 1 event asset token that was used in their event. This represents that people get injured, sets get damaged, and so on. Remove the tile from the game, do not place it back in the bag. Then, the player who has the current highest overall score, that is the player who has so far produced the best event, gets a podium and places it in their arena. This gives 3 extra spectators to every future event they produce. If 2 or more players are tied for the highest score, then the podium goes to the one of them with the most money. If it's still tied, decide randomly. Then, the player who currently has the lowest score takes one standard event asset token from the player who just received the podium. Special tokens like this one cannot be taken. If there's a tie for the player in last place, then it's the one with the least money who gets it. And again, if it's still a tie, decide randomly. And finally, advance the round marker to the next space. In addition to the standard asset tokens, there are some special ones that you may acquire during the game. This one is a universal asset. It can be used to replace any standard asset token when you're producing an event. You decide what it is at the point you need it, and you can change your mind each time it's used. The Emperor asset token is immediately replaced when you acquire it by an Emperor's Medal token, which you take from the supply. This is an additional action token. You can use it to take an additional investment during Phase 1, or you can discard it to take an Emperor's Medal. The Emperor's Medals are very useful and have a few uses. You can discard one when producing an event to gain 3 additional spectators. You can discard 2 of them during the investment phase to perform an additional investment. Or you could simply discard one at any time to gain 6 money. And finally, you can use one when moving nobles to move any noble up to 3 spaces clockwise or anti-clockwise. This movement is done after you've moved the nobles from rolling the dice, but before any Emperor's Medals are awarded. You can use as many Emperor's Medals on your turn as you want to, but when they are used, they're placed back in the supply. After the production of events in the last round of the game, the winner is determined by looking at the scores. The winner is the one with the highest score, and if it's tied, it goes to the player with the most money. I hope you found this video useful in learning how to play Colosseum. If you want to see more of my videos, please consider subscribing to my channel. And for more great games from Tasty Minstrel, please visit the Tasty Minstrel Games website. Until next time, take care, and thanks for watching.